Do you think then that Chinese learn things from the countries they're investing that they bring back home, and how has that changed, internally, China's domestic policies?
So the first place I actually look for China taking lessons from abroad back home is not on the political front, because we tend to look only for the politics and the governance. But the first place you see them taking lessons home is on the technical and managerial fronts. When China goes out, and let's talk about oil for a moment. When China goes out to invest in oil, Chinese companies are trying to put reserves on their books, just like any Western company would, but they're also trying to partner with Western firms that have technical skills and management skills that the Chinese companies themselves don't have, that they'd like to apply not only around the world, but within China itself. So you see, for example, Chinese companies taking minority stakes in joint ventures for tight oil and shale gas acreage in the United States. They're not going to ship that gas back to China. They're not going to ship that oil back to China. And these are pretty minor stakes. They aren't going to transform the bottom line for these companies. But what they hope to learn through this is, how do you choose where to drill a shale gas well? How do you manage the service company that brings the fracking expertise and the land and the water and put all the pieces together so they can go and try to apply those back in China? So to me, that's the first place where China is bringing back lessons from abroad, not political, not governance, but just how to do business more effectively and maximize their own domestic output.
Right. I think on the political and governance side, they're beginning to learn the lessons from foreign multinationals, from pressure from host governments and host NGOs. I think, but it's a much slower process than the one that Mike described on the sort of technical and managerial side. But we are seeing learning by Chinese companies, and sometimes they learn from each other. For example, in Peru, there was a particularly egregious case of environmental and labor sort of malfeasance by an early entrant into the mining area by Shogun Hierro, Peru, in the early mid-1990s. But if you look over the past 2 decades now or so, you can see that they've really, the later entrants from the Chinese mining industry have really begun to learn from the negative example of that one company. And they are beginning to undertake environmental impact assessments. They are considering, when they're relocating the people to develop the infrastructure surrounding the mine, where do these people want to live and how do they want to live? Right? They want single-family homes. They don't want to be put into, multi-family dwellings with bunk beds. Whatever it may be, they're beginning to understand how to practice better corporate social responsibility. They'll hire a local CEO or a Western company to advise them on how to manage community relations. So we are seeing some of that learning, but it is a slow process, a slow uptake.